Maya Bennett stands in the doorway of her father's boat repair shop, staring at a stack of envelopes she doesn't want to open. The smell of varnish and teak oil still hangs in the air, 6 months after Jack Bennett's heart gave out while sanding the hull of a 1967 Chris Craft. The shop looks exactly as he left it. Tools arranged by size on pegboard walls, half-finished projects covered in canvas tarps, a coffee mug with his name still sitting on the workbench, a ring of dried residue at the bottom. She opens the envelopes anyway. Electric bill, 3 months overdue. Marine supply invoice unpaid since January. A letter from Key West Community Bank with the words final notice printed in red across the top. $47,000 in debt. 90 days until foreclosure. Her father built this business over 30 years, one restoration at a time, and now it's circling the drain like water through a scupper. The bell above the door chimes. Claire walks in carrying a cardboard box and a rolling suitcase. She's wearing a blazer that probably cost more than the shop makes in a week, but her eyes have that hollow look people get when they've been crying in airport bathrooms. Maya hasn't seen her sister in 2 years, not since their father's funeral, when Claire flew in from Miami for 48 hours and flew back out before the reception ended. "I got laid off," Claire says, setting the box on the workbench. "Entire marketing department, 15 years gone in a Zoom call." Maya doesn't say "I told you so," even though she wants to. Claire left the family business at 23, said she wanted something more than sawdust and fiberglass. Now she's back, and the timing couldn't be worse. Or maybe it couldn't be better. Maya isn't sure which. "We're broke," Maya says, holding up the bank letter. 3 months, maybe less. Claire picks up their father's coffee mug, runs her finger along the rim. "What about selling the property? This location's worth something. Dad mortgaged it twice. We sell, the bank takes everything." Maya walks to the window overlooking the marina. Sailboats rock gently in their slips, halyards clinking against aluminum masts. "I've been thinking about salvage work. Buying wrecked boats, stripping the valuable parts, selling scrap. Dad taught us how to do it when we were kids, remember?" Claire sets the mug down carefully, exactly where it was. "That was summer fun. This is survival. It's the only play we have left." The salvage yard in Fort Lauderdale sprawls across 4 acres of cracked asphalt and crushed coral. Boats sit in crooked rows like tombstones in a maritime graveyard. Fishing trawlers with holes punched through their hulls. Cabin cruisers with their engines ripped out. A catamaran split down the middle, both halves leaning against each other like exhausted dancers. The air smells like rust and dead fish and the particular kind of rot that only happens when wood stays wet for too long. Maya and Claire walk past lot after lot, their father's voice echoing in their heads. He used to bring them here on Saturdays, teaching them to spot value in wreckage. Bronze through hulls worth $50 each. Teak decking that could be refinished and resold. Stainless steel rigging that scrapyards paid by the pound. Every boat was a puzzle, he'd say. You just had to know which pieces were worth keeping. The auctioneer stands on a wooden platform, sweat stains spreading under his arms despite the November breeze. He's working through the lots fast, banging his gavel every 2 minutes. Lot 44 goes for $1,200. Lot 45 doesn't get a single bid. Lot 46, a Boston whaler with a cracked transom, sells for $900 to a man in coveralls who looks like he's done this 1,000 times. Lot 47, the auctioneer calls out. 1952 wooden sailboat, 32 feet, found half submerged off Key Largo. Hull's compromised. Mast is broken, cabins flooded. Bronze fittings, teak deck, mahogany interior. Sold as is, no warranty, no refunds. Scrap value only, folks. Who'll start me at $500? The boat sits on a rusty trailer at the edge of the yard. The hull is dark with water damage, streaked with green algae and white salt deposits. The name on the transom is barely visible under layers of marine growth. Windward Spirit. The mast lies in 2 pieces on the deck, snapped clean through about 8 feet up. One of the bronze portholes is missing entirely, leaving a dark hole in the cabin side like an empty eye socket. Nobody bids. $400? The auctioneer tries. "Come on, folks, that's 1,000 pounds of bronze right there. $300? Maya raises her hand. $300. The auctioneer looks relieved. $300, I have $300. Do I hear 4? A man in the back laughs. "That death trap ain't worth the trailer fee." $350, someone calls out. More to keep the auction moving than from any real interest. $400, Maya says. Claire grabs her arm. "What are you doing?" "Look at it. That thing's been underwater for months. 500, the other bidder says, sounding bored. 800, Maya calls out. The yard goes quiet. The auctioneer's eyebrows go up. The other bidder shakes his head and walks away. Nobody else moves. 800 once, 800 twice. The gavel comes down. Sold to bidder 73. Claire stares at her sister. That was our last $800. Maya walks toward the boat, running her hand along the hull. The wood is soft in places, spongy with rot, but the bronze fittings are still there. The teak deck, though warped and split, is salvageable, and something about the boat feels right in a way she can't explain. Their father always said the best treasures hide in plain sight. She's betting everything that he was right. They tow the Windward Spirit back to Key West on a borrowed trailer, driving 30 miles an hour on the overseas highway while cars honk and swerve around them. The boat shifts and creaks with every bump, and Maya keeps checking the rearview mirror, convinced the whole thing is going to slide off and shatter across 4 lanes of traffic. It doesn't. They make it back to the shop just before sunset, backing the trailer into the work bay while neighbors gather on the sidewalk to watch. That's the Bennett girls, someone says. Bought themselves a floating coffin. Jack would be ashamed, another voice adds. Maya pretends not to hear. She's heard worse in the past 6 months. The neighborhood has opinions about women running a boat shop, especially women who can't keep it profitable. She sets up work lights around the hull and starts the assessment. Claire brings out their father's old toolbox, the red metal one with his initials scratched into the lid, and they begin. The hull is worse than it looked at the auction. 3 planks on the starboard side are completely rotted through. The keel has a crack running 18 inches along the center line. The rudder is missing its lower pintle. Maya makes notes on a yellow pad, adding up repair costs in her head. The numbers don't look good. They spend the first day removing the easy stuff. Bronze cleats corroded but salvageable. Stainless steel turnbuckles from the rigging. A ship's wheel made of mahogany and brass that's actually in decent shape once they clean off the algae. Claire works quietly, using wire brushes and scrapers, falling into the rhythm they learned as teenagers. Neither of them mentions that this feels like dismantling their childhood, one piece at a time. On the second day, they tackle the cabin. The door is swollen shut from water damage. Maya has to use a pry bar to pop it open, and when she does, 6 inches of brackish water slosh out across the deck. The smell hits them like a physical force. Mildew and rot and something else, something organic and dead. Claire gags and steps back. "We need masks," she says. They work in shifts after that, wearing respirators and rubber gloves, bailing out the water bucket by bucket. The cabin interior is destroyed. Cushions reduced to moldy foam. Cabinet doors hanging off their hinges. A small galley stove rusted into a solid mass. But the mahogany paneling is still intact, and mahogany is worth money if they can salvage it without splitting the boards. By the third day, they've pulled maybe $1,200 worth of scrap. Bronze fittings, some teak planks, the ship's wheel, various pieces of hardware. It's not enough. Not even close. Maya sits on an overturned bucket at midnight, doing math on her phone calculator. They're going to lose money on this boat. They're going to lose everything. Claire is still in the cabin, working by headlamp, prying off panels. Maya hears her sister make a sound, something between a gasp and a laugh. "Maya, get in here." Maya climbs down into the cabin. Claire is kneeling in the forward berth, shining her light on the wall. There's a seam in the mahogany paneling, barely visible, running vertical for about 3 feet. It doesn't match the grain pattern of the surrounding wood. Claire has already worked a putty knife into the edge. "Help me," Claire says. They pry together carefully and the panel comes away with a soft crack. Behind it is a compartment, maybe 2 feet wide and 3 feet tall, sealed with thick rubber gaskets that look military grade. The rubber is still pliable, still doing its job after 70 years underwater. Inside the compartment, wrapped in oilcloth that's somehow still dry, are instruments. Bronze instruments that gleam in the headlamp light like they were polished yesterday. Maya reaches in slowly, reverently, and lifts out the first piece. It's a sextant, heavy and perfectly balanced, with a maker's mark engraved on the frame. C. Plath, Hamburg. The mirrors are intact. The vernier scale is still readable. She's seen sextants before in maritime museums and antique shops, but never one like this. Never one that looks like it could still shoot a star sight right now, tonight, and tell you exactly where you are in the world. Claire unwraps the next piece. A chronometer, housed in a brass gimbal mount with Hamilton Model 21 engraved on the face. The kind of precision timepiece the Navy used for navigation, the kind that cost more than a car in 1952. Next to it is a gyro compass, a Sperry civilian model, rare as hell and worth a fortune to collectors. But it's the charts that make Maya's hands shake. Rolled nautical charts, hand-annotated in blue ink, dated 1954 through 1958. Coordinates and compass directions. Notes in tight, precise handwriting about currents and reef formations and tidal patterns. And at the bottom of the compartment, wrapped in leather that's gone dark with age, a logbook. Claire opens it carefully. The first page has a name embossed in gold leaf. Captain Edward Harlow. They sit in the flooded cabin surrounded by rot and ruin, holding instruments that shouldn't exist, that shouldn't have survived, that shouldn't be here at all. Who was Edward Harlow? Claire whispers. Maya doesn't answer. She's already pulling out her phone, searching the name, watching the screen fill with results. Articles from sailing magazines, race results from the 1950s, photographs of a man standing on the deck of a sailboat, holding a trophy, grinning like he owned the ocean. And then, at the bottom of the search results, an obituary from 1959, lost at sea during Hurricane Gracie. Boat never recovered, body never found. They're sitting in his grave. Maya spends the next morning on her laptop, falling down a rabbit hole of maritime history. Captain Edward Ned Harlow was a legend in the 1950s sailing world, the kind of sailor people wrote magazine articles about. He won the Nassau Cup twice, in 1955 and 1957, beating boats twice the size of his with nothing but skill and nerve. He pioneered celestial navigation techniques for solo ocean racing, publishing papers in yachting journals about using star sights to navigate through storms when electronic equipment failed. The articles paint him as brilliant and obsessive. He'd spend weeks preparing for a single race, studying weather patterns and current charts, plotting courses with mathematical precision. Other sailors called him the professor, half admiration and half mockery. He didn't drink with the crews after races. He didn't tell stories in marina bars. He just sailed and won and disappeared back to his boat to plan the next voyage. In 1958, something changed. Harlow started talking about the San Miguel, a Spanish treasure galleon that went down in the hurricane of 1715 off the Florida coast. 11 ships sank that day, carrying millions in silver and gold from the New World back to Spain. Salvagers had been finding pieces of the fleet for 200 years, but the San Miguel was never located. Most historians thought it broke up completely, scattered across miles of ocean floor. Harlow thought differently. He believed the ship went down intact in shallow water, hidden by shifting sands and coral growth. He spent a year researching, diving, mapping the coastline. His logbook entries from that period are obsessive, filled with calculations and theories and references to landmarks that only he understood. In October 1959, Hurricane Gracie formed in the Atlantic and tracked toward Florida. The Coast Guard issued evacuation orders for small craft. Harlow ignored them. Witnesses reported seeing the Windward Spirit heading out of Key West Harbor on October 6th, sailing directly into the storm's path. He was never seen again. Search and rescue found nothing. No debris, no body, no boat. The ocean swallowed him whole. Claire reads over Maya's shoulder, scrolling through scanned newspaper articles. He was looking for treasure when he died. He was looking for something, Maya says. Whether he found it is another question. They turn to the logbook. Harlow's handwriting is small and precise. Engineer's script, every letter formed with deliberate care. The early entries are routine. Weather observations, navigation calculations, notes about sail trim and boat speed. But starting in January 1958, the entries change. They become cryptic, referencing locations by nickname rather than exact positions. First marker confirmed at Devil's Elbow. Second marker just past Pelican Rock, heading northeast. Third marker found. She's close now, very close. There are sketches too. Rough drawings of reef formations with depth measurements marked in feet. A diagram of what looks like ballast stones arranged in a pattern. And on one page, dated September 1959, a single sentence underlined 3 times. She's there. I know she's there. Maya takes photos of every page, then starts cross-referencing the nicknames with modern nautical charts. Devil's Elbow doesn't appear on any current map. Neither does Pelican Rock. Hurricanes and development have changed the Florida coastline dramatically since the 1950s. Reefs have been destroyed. Channels have been dredged. Navigation markers have been moved or removed entirely. We need an expert, Claire says. We need money, Maya counters. Let's find out what this stuff is worth first. She calls a maritime antique dealer in Miami, a man named Robert Chen who specializes in navigation instruments. She describes what they found carefully, without mentioning Harlow's name or the logbook. Chen listens quietly, then asks her to send photos. 20 minutes later, he calls back. His voice has changed. It's tighter, more focused. Where did you get these? He asks. Salvage boat. Why? The Plath sextant alone is worth $15,000, maybe more. The Hamilton chronometer, $22,000 if the movement is intact. The Sperry gyro compass, that's rare, maybe $10,000 to the right collector. If you have documentation, provenance, the value goes up significantly. Maya does the math in her head. $47,000. Enough to save the shop, enough to start over. I can offer you $95,000 cash for the collection, Chen says. Sight unseen based on the photos. I can be in Key West tomorrow with a cashier's check. Maya looks at Claire. Her sister is reading the logbook again, running her finger along Harlow's handwritten notes. There's something in Claire's expression that Maya recognizes from childhood, from the days when their father would tell them stories about famous shipwrecks and lost treasure. It's the look of someone who stopped thinking about money and started thinking about mystery. Let me call you back, Maya says and hangs up. We should take it, Maya says. 95,000 solves everything. Claire doesn't look up from the logbook. What if he really found it? What if the San Miguel is actually out there? Then someone else can look for it. We're boat restorers, not treasure hunters. Dad always said to finish what others started. Dad also said to pay your bills on time. Maya takes the logbook from Claire's hands, closes it firmly. This is real money. Real salvation. We can't throw that away chasing a ghost. Claire stands up, brushing fiberglass dust off her jeans. You're right. Call him back. Tell him we'll take the deal. But neither of them moves. They stand in the workshop, surrounded by the dismantled pieces of the Windward Spirit, and something feels unfinished, like walking out of a movie before the ending, like closing a book with pages still unread. The bell above the door chimes. An old man walks in, moving carefully, using a wooden cane that looks hand-carved. He's wearing khaki pants and a faded blue sailing shirt, the kind with epaulets on the shoulders. His face is weathered, deeply lined, the face of someone who spent decades squinting into sun and salt spray. He looks around the shop slowly, taking in the tools, the boat parts, the Windward Spirit sitting on its trailer like a beached whale. I'm looking for the Bennett sisters, he says. His voice is rough like sandpaper on old wood. That's us, Maya says. Can we help you? The old man walks closer, leaning heavily on his cane. He's staring at the sailboat, and there's something in his expression that Maya can't quite read. Recognition, maybe. Or grief. My name is Thomas Harlow, he says. I saw your inquiry online about my father's navigation instruments. The workshop goes very quiet. Even the traffic noise from the street seems to fade away. I was 6 years old when he disappeared. Thomas continues. October 1959. I remember standing on the dock with my mother, watching for his boat to come back. We stood there for 3 days. He never came. Claire steps forward. Mr. Harlow, we found these items in a salvage boat. We didn't know. I know what you found. Thomas reaches into his pocket and pulls out a folded photograph, yellowed with age. It shows a man standing on the deck of a sailboat, the name Windward Spirit visible on the transom behind him. The man is holding a sextant, the same Plath sextant that's now sitting on the Bennett's workbench. This was taken in 1957, after he won his second Nassau Cup. That sextant was his most prized possession. He said it was more accurate than any electronic equipment ever made. Maya and Claire exchange glances. Thomas sees it. You're wondering if I'm here to take them back, he says. To claim what's rightfully mine. The thought crossed our minds, Maya admits. Thomas laughs, a dry sound without much humor. I spent 65 years wondering what happened to my father. Whether he suffered, whether he was afraid at the end, whether he thought about us. He touches the sailboat's hull gently, almost reverently. Finding this boat, finding his instruments, that gives me something I never had before. Closure. We were offered $95,000 for the collection, Claire says quietly. We need that money. Our business is failing. I understand. Thomas nods slowly. I'm a retired school teacher. I don't have that kind of money, but I do have something you might want. He pulls out another item from his pocket, a folded nautical chart, old and brittle. This was in my father's study. I found it after he died, kept it all these years. Never knew what it meant until I read your online post about finding his logbook. He unfolds the chart carefully on the workbench. It's a map of the Florida Keys, dated 1958, covered in pencil marks and annotations. And in the corner, in the same handwriting as the logbook, a legend explaining the nicknames. Devil's Elbow is marked clearly, with modern coordinates written beside it. Pelican Rock, the third marker. All of them translated, decoded, made readable. He sent this to my mother a week before he disappeared, Thomas says, in case something happened to him, in case someone needed to finish what he started. Maya studies the chart, her heart beating faster. The locations are real, specific, findable. What are you proposing? She asks. Help me find out if he was right, Thomas says. If the San Miguel is really out there, you keep the instruments, sell them, save your business. But let me come with you. Let me see what my father died trying to find. Claire picks up the logbook, opens it to the last entry, September 1959. She's there. I know she's there. She looks at Maya, and in that look is everything they've lost and everything they might find. Their father's legacy, Harlow's obsession, the mystery that's waited 65 years for an answer. We'd need diving equipment, Maya says slowly. A boat. Permits, probably. We'd need to do this right, Claire adds. Legal. By the book. Thomas smiles, and for the first time it reaches his eyes. My father would have wanted it that way. He was many things, but he was never a thief. They spend the next 2 weeks preparing. Maya rents diving gear from a shop in Marathon. Claire files the necessary permits with the Florida Bureau of Archaeological Research, declaring their intent to survey a potential historical site. Thomas brings boxes of his father's research, old charts and photographs and newspaper clippings that fill in the gaps in the logbook's story. The location is 12 miles off Isla Mirada, in water shallow enough to dive without special equipment, but deep enough that casual boaters avoid it. The currents are tricky, the bottom is mostly sand and coral rubble, and according to modern surveys, there's nothing there worth finding. But Harlow's chart says different. They charter a boat on a Tuesday morning in early December, when the tourist season is just starting and the weather is clear. The captain is a local named Rodriguez who's been running dive charters for 30 years. He looks at their coordinates and shakes his head. Nothing out there but sand, he says. I've been over that area 100 times. Humor us, Maya says, handing him $300 cash. They motor out into the Atlantic, the Florida Keys shrinking behind them until they're just a green line on the horizon. The water is that particular shade of blue that only exists in the tropics, so clear you can see 20 feet down from the surface. Thomas stands at the bow, one hand on the railing, staring ahead like he's looking for something only he can see. Rodriguez cuts the engine at the coordinates. This is it. 22 feet of water, sandy bottom, some coral heads. You've got about 40 minutes of bottom time if you're staying shallow. Maya and Claire gear up, checking each other's equipment the way their father taught them. Thomas wants to dive too, but his age and his cane make it impossible. He'll watch from the boat, waiting the way he waited on that dock in 1959. The water is warm and clear. Maya descends slowly, equalizing the pressure in her ears, watching the bottom come into focus below her. Claire is beside her, moving with the easy grace of someone who grew up in the water. They swim in a search pattern, back and forth, covering the area systematically. For the first 30 minutes, they find nothing, just sand rippled by current, patches of coral, a few fish that dart away as they approach. Maya's air gauge shows she's at half a tank. They'll need to surface soon. Then Claire taps her shoulder, points down and to the left. There's a line in the sand, too straight to be natural. Maya swims closer, fans away the loose sediment with her hand and sees stones. Ballast stones arranged in a row exactly like the diagram in Harlow's logbook. She follows the line, and it curves, forming a shape, the outline of a hull. Her heart is pounding now, using air faster than she should. She signals to Claire, and they swim the perimeter together. The stones form a rectangle about 60 feet long and 20 feet wide, the size of a Spanish galleon. And at one end, partially buried, is a bronze bell, Claire reaches it first, brushes away the encrustation carefully. There's an inscription, barely visible under decades of marine growth. Maya pulls out the underwater camera they brought, takes photos from every angle. They'll need experts to read it properly, but even now she can make out 2 letters, SM San Miguel. They surface together, pulling off their masks, breathing hard. Rodriguez helps them back onto the boat. Thomas is standing at the railing, his hands gripping it so tight his knuckles are white. "Well?" he asks, and his voice cracks on the word. "He found it," Maya says. "Your father found it." Thomas sits down heavily, and for a moment Maya thinks he might be having a heart attack. But then she realizes he's crying, silent tears running down his weathered face. He's not sad. He's relieved. After 65 years of wondering, of not knowing, he finally has his answer. His father wasn't crazy, wasn't chasing fantasies. He was right. They motor back to shore in silence, each of them lost in their own thoughts. Maya is already doing calculations in her head. The legal process for claiming salvage rights. The permits they'll need. The archaeologists who'll want to be involved. This isn't a quick score, isn't a treasure chest they can haul up and sell. This is history. And history moves slowly. Back at the shop, they spread out the photos on the workbench. The ballast stones. The bell. The outline of the hull. Claire is already on her laptop researching Florida salvage law, making notes on a yellow pad. This could take years, Maya says. Permits, surveys, excavation. And even then, the state gets a percentage. We might end up with nothing. Or we might end up with something priceless, Claire counters. Thomas picks up the photograph of his father, the one showing him with the sextant. He didn't do this for money, he says quietly. He did it because some questions need answers. Some mysteries need solving. Maya thinks about her father, about the 30 years he spent restoring boats that other people had given up on, about the patience it took to sand and varnish and fit pieces together until something broken became whole again. He didn't do it for money either. He did it because it was worth doing. We report the find, Maya says finally. We do this right. Legal. Proper. Claire nods. And the instruments? Maya looks at the Plath sextant gleaming on the workbench. $15,000. 22 for the chronometer. 10 for the gyro compass. Enough to save the business. Pay the debts? Start over. We sell them to a museum, she says. Somewhere they'll be displayed. Somewhere people can see them and learn about Harlow, about what he accomplished. That'll be less money, Claire points out. I know. Thomas reaches into his jacket and pulls out a checkbook. Let me buy them, he says. I'll donate them to the Maritime Museum in my father's name. They've already expressed interest. $78,000. It's below market value, but it's what I can afford. Maya does the math. $78,000 pays off most of the debt. Not all, but enough to keep the bank from foreclosing. Enough to buy time. Deal, she says, and shakes his hand. The next 6 months pass in a blur of paperwork and phone calls and meetings with state archaeologists. The San Miguel site is officially registered as a historical landmark. A university team begins a proper excavation, using ground-penetrating sonar and careful grid mapping. They find coins, pottery, sections of hull timber preserved in the sand. Nothing spectacular. No chests of gold, but enough to confirm that this is indeed one of the lost ships from the 1715 fleet. The Bennett sisters are credited as co-discoverers, along with Thomas Harlow. Their names appear in academic papers and newspaper articles. The story spreads, the tale of 2 sisters who bought a wreck for scrap and found a piece of history instead. The publicity brings customers, people who want their boats restored by the women who found a Spanish galleon. People who appreciate craftsmanship and patience and the kind of work that can't be rushed. The shop starts making money again, slowly, steadily, the way their father always said it should. The Maritime Museum opens a new exhibit in August. Captain Edward Harlow, navigator, champion, explorer. The Plath sextant is displayed in a glass case, alongside the chronometer and gyro compass. The logbook is there too, open to that final entry. She's there. I know she's there. And next to it, a photograph of the ballast stones on the ocean floor, proof that he was right. Thomas Harlow stands at the opening, surrounded by his children and grandchildren, telling them about the grandfather they never met, about his skill and his obsession and his courage, about how he died doing what he loved, chasing a mystery across the ocean. Maya and Claire stand in the back of the room watching. They're wearing dresses instead of work clothes and they feel slightly ridiculous. But this moment matters. This is the ending their father would have wanted. Not treasure, not fortune, but something finished. Something made whole. Think we'll ever find another one? Claire asks. Maya smiles. Another sunken sailboat full of priceless artifacts and a 65-year-old mystery? Probably not. Shame. Yeah, but they both know they'll keep looking anyway, because that's what their father taught them. Every boat is a puzzle. You just have to know which pieces are worth keeping. And sometimes the most valuable pieces aren't the ones you can sell. They're the ones that tell a story. The ones that give someone closure. The ones that prove a man wasn't crazy, wasn't chasing fantasies, but was right all along. The Windward Spirit sits in the museum courtyard now, fully restored. Maya and Claire spent 4 months bringing her back to life, replacing rotted planks, refinishing the teak deck, stepping a new mast. She'll never sail again, but she doesn't need to. She's already made her final voyage, carrying Captain Harlow's legacy across 65 years of ocean and bringing it safely home. If you enjoyed this incredible story of discovery and legacy, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more amazing tales like this one. Hit that like button and drop a comment below telling us what you would have done in Maya and Claire's situation. Would you have sold the instruments immediately or searched for the treasure? We'd love to hear your thoughts.